Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, welcome into the PGA Championship. This is not the preview. This is not the salary by salary breakdown for Draftkings. We already did that yesterday. We did that on Monday, maybe a couple days ago, depending on when you're watching this. This is going to be the top 8 golfers for DFS, and also we'll be reviewing my 4 picks I have so far, 4 outright bets for this event. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, and do those things as we get into it. And we're going to smack you right away with the number 8 play in the day at the PGA Championship. If you want the course info, the course breakdown, the key stats, and all that, be sure to tune into the previous video from this week, the starter of all starters for you, the preview show where we go salary by salary. The number 8 golfer in my rankings right now is going to be Jason Kokrak at $7,100. Now, where do these rankings stem from? To give you a quick background, my projections. I create projections every single week. We have ownership projections. I'm actually giving those on the screen right now for these specific 8 golfers. Those will change, of course, throughout the week, but this is where we're at right now as of Tuesday afternoon, so it's pretty stable, or at least stable early on. So the top 8 golfers are coming from my projection sheet, of which you can see down below on Patreon if you want to tune into there, the optimizer, a bunch of other tools. You can check them all out. So Kokrak comes into this one as a 151 odds to win this. So 150 to 1, I'm not really interested in that. And we've seen Jason Kokrak play probably some of the best golf of his entire career over this calendar year, over the last 2 months of the season or so. And Kokrak is not one of these young and up-and-coming players. I mean, 35-year-old Kokrak has been on an absolute tear lately, coming off of a 13th at the Valspar where everything was clicking. And the putter has been there in a major way, right? You're looking at the top 10 finish at the WGC. The putter was there. The top 10 finish at the Players, a very loaded event. The putter was there. So the putter's been there, but that's going to need to be there. The consistency out of the putter is nice to see, but also the consistency off the tee and on approach, that ball striking specifically off the tee and your driving distance, something that I'm looking at here. Now, if you want to look on the screen right here, you can see some interesting things. He's a top 8 player, and at his price point of $7,100, he is picking up a decent amount of ownership. 10% owned is not highly owned, right? We're talking 18 to 22+% owned is high ownership for DraftKings golf. But for that price range, that is decently high owned, but I'm not scared off of it completely. But as you can see, in this field right now, ranks as the number 5 overall putter out of 150 plus golfers and the number 13 off the tee player. I'm looking for distance here. It's over 7,800 yards, almost 7,900 yards. You can tell me all you want. The distance isn't going to matter as much as people are saying it is. It's going to matter. So it's good to see that he has the distance. Check a box there. And the putting is good to see as well. Right now, my number 8 overall play, and the exact projection I have on Jason Kokrak at $7,100 is 45.7 fantasy points. Kokrak right now for me is a B+, and in my grading system right now, I have no A's for this slate. That would basically be a lock. And my B+ is the highest grade you can get. He is one of 5 golfers in that range. Now, the reason why he's not higher than number 8 is because his projection overall is not the greatest. It's just based on the salary that he is. It's giving you a good amount of value. Our number 8 play on the day. Thank you for being here. Like, subscribe again, do all those things. We already have a video out this week. We'll have a betting video out, and I'll be going live on Wednesday afternoon, so be sure to hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live. We got the studio all up. It's about 85 to 90% done. We got to hang some more things, waiting on some stuff to come, but I'm feeling pretty good about the layout here so far. So let's get into the rest of these, and I'll talk about some of my bets on the week, my outright bets, as I'm sure some people are tuning in specifically for those. I posted the 4 players that I've taken on the outright streets right now on Twitter, so if you ever want to see them, you can see them there, but we can break them down in a little bit more depth as we go through this. The number 7 golfer right now on my top 8 list is somebody that I honestly don't have as much interest. So this is just based on my point per dollar projections. It's not specifically my interest in where I have these guys. These guys are all B's or better for the most part in my rankings, so it's going to be quality plays, but you have to be conscious of the overall total lineup ownership. And as you can see right here, as I pull up the number 7 play, it's Daniel Berger at $8,700, 30 to 1 odds is where he opened. It's all across the board differently now, and depending on where you look in the sports books. But Daniel Berger is 22% owned this week, which doesn't mean you can't play him. You can play 1 to 2 to even 3 20% owned guys as long as you're getting different elsewhere and or leaving salary on the table in your lineup. But Daniel Berger right now for me is tied for the 3rd highest owned player, actually tied technically for the 2nd highest owned player right now in my model. So that's going to be something that does stand out as a negative, as you can see right there, 22% on him. Now, Daniel Berger, where else does he stand out? Off the tee plays where Daniel Berger stands out as somebody that I do like to see. Daniel Berger for me currently projects right now for 56.4 fantasy points, making Daniel Berger the best $8,000 option arguably on the slate right now. I've got Berger projecting out as should be a $9,300 golfer at $8,700. So you're obviously getting the value there. The market is identifying that value right now on good old Daniel Berger. And if we want to just look at Fantasy National, it's a data site. You can check it out, linked down below, how he's been playing. He's been playing fantastic. He's coming off of some of the best form that you've seen out of him lately since he won earlier this year at the AT&T Pro-Am. He's coming off of a 3rd place finish at the Byron Nelson, which was actually a decently stacked field. And what did he do? He had his best off the tee showing, something we're looking for here with the driver, since last October at the CJ Cup. The approach play was firing. Everything was firing. That's why you're going to be finishing top 3. So Berger right now, you're looking at 4 top 10 finishes, a win this year. You're looking at 5 top 15 finishes and only a couple of missed cuts. He's underpriced clearly. The market's identifying it. They're seeing the recent form. He is going to be our number 7 play on the day. Now, as we get into the number 6 play, I will kind of talk about some of my betting outrights right now. I took Xander at 24-1 odds overall, and we can pull up the double box here to look at where the betting markets currently are in some of these players that I took. I took Xander at 24-1. Now, these are guys that I don't even think really, I think they set up well here, otherwise I wouldn't have bet them, but I'm not just gung-ho that this guy's going to be the one to win out of 150 plus golfers. It's more so just getting value on those lines. So if we pull up Action Network right now, it's just an odds comparison tool. You can see that Xander's best line is still available at 22-1, depending on where you want to get it. So I got the 24. That doesn't seem to be out there, but maybe it's out there for your books. Why do I like Xander? Well, you're just getting some value on a guy who's normally 16-18-1 odds for a guy who consistently is putting well and has the off the tee game and ranks out as a top 10 golfer in the world and is going to be playing like that, but he's not currently, in my opinion right now, listed in the odds like that. So I took the 24-1 odds on Xander. The second player that I ended up going out there and taking, I added this one a little bit later on, was Will Zalatoris at a 60-1 number. Will Zalatoris now across the industry, you can still get him at PointsBet right here, 60-1, so it's not like you're too late on this one if you indeed wanted to go and get it. And we talked about this on the show, the first show of the week. Will Zalatoris, if you're just looking at how he sets up for this course, he is the number 2 ball striker in this field this specific season, based on the events that he's played in over the last 50 rounds. But then when you want to look at what he's doing off the tee, he's arguably a top 10 driver in this field right now. What you're seeing lately out of Will Zalatoris in his recent play was, I mean, at the AT&T, he finished his top 20 gains 9.5 strokes on approach. So absolutely fantastic. Gains with the off the tee. The driver he lost at the RBC Heritage misses the cut, but he missed the cut, so it's somewhat of a smaller sample there. And before that, he's gaining 2 or more strokes off the tee, gaining 3 to 4 to 5 strokes week in and week out, basically every single week this season before that missed cut for Will Zalatoris. The ball striking is absolutely fantastic. The downside is, what does he do with the putter? When he putts, like at the Masters, you kind of see this Collin Morikawa effect of, oh, he's finishing top 2 and he's threatening to overall win the Masters, right? So it all comes down to, does this guy putt at a 60-1 number for a guy up and coming, kind of on a similar trajectory without the win as Collin Morikawa last year, right? Just having this ball striking, firing, and showing up at big events without that win like Morikawa, but then Morikawa ended up coming through and winning the PGA. I think Zalatoris' game sets up nicely over 60-1. We can check back in on my other 2 bets momentarily, and one of them is this guy right here, the number 6 play, spoiler alert, is Paul Casey. Paul Casey is somebody that I always like, and now you're getting decent ownership on him. Casey in these majors is basically always $7,800 to $7,900, and he finds himself right around that price point now at $7,700. He opened 80-1. I snagged him at 70-1, and as we talk through this, you can actually see why I took this guy, and this was my 3rd bet this week. Paul Casey is just dominant on approach, and the concerns have always been basically the last year and a half, will Paul Casey putt for you? And Paul Casey this year has found something with his putter. Something is now there for Paul Casey when he gets onto the putting surface. He has some sort of swagger. He's feeling good about himself. He's chilling out. He's relaxing. He's maxing all cool, right? So this last time out at the Valspar, he loses 3.8 strokes putting. That's the first time he had a bad putting performance this entire season, dating back to October of last year. I mean, we're closer to a year than less than 6 months at this point, right? So he still finished 21st. Why? Because his ball striking has been absolutely dynamite. He ended up gaining just overall ball striking 8.6 strokes last time out at the Valspar. So Paul Casey, you continue to see play well, great appearances in some major events, and the fact is that he's just dirt cheap, and he's not picking up ownership. On the screen, you can see I have him projected for 14% ownership. I would say that that is average to below average right now for this type of a slate, especially when you take into account how well he grades out for me. Paul Casey right now for me is grading out for 50 fantasy points, making him point per dollar wise the number 6 overall play for me, ranks out as a B in the model. He grades out as a top 15 ball striker in this event. It all comes down to, what does the putter do? We saw one bad round last time with the putter at the Valspar, and it kind of ruined the rest of his weekend. He still pushed towards a top 20. I'll be taking Paul Casey here, somebody that I have a lot of confidence in, I would say, at this specific price point when you factor in lower ownership. Guys in his ownership range that are right now soaking up all the ownership, I mean, look no further than the guy who I have projected for the most ownership, tied for the most ownership on the slate, $7,900 Abraham Answer is soaking up a lot of that ownership. Some other guys in the range soaking up ownership will be guys like Sam Burns, who's been on an absolute heater lately, a win and a second place finish, and Corey Connors, who's been having the best season of his career, as he has also, similar to Paul Casey, kind of found something with that putter. So now we'll get into the top 5 plays on the slate, and as we get into the number 5 play on the slate, I want to let you know about one of the partners and our friends, and that is going to be SuperDraft. What they're running for us is a $1,000 free roll. It's free for you to enter. If you're watching this right now, it costs $0 for your ability to win up to $1,000 in prizes. They're just running it this week for a promotion. They said, hey, we can make this for your user base. If you want to check it out, send it to them, send it in the Discord, send it on YouTube. I said, sure. So it'll be linked down below. And if you want to play in any paid contest, they have $1,000 to first place. They have NBA, MLB contests, WNBA, NHL, a bunch of stuff on there. Check out SuperDraft. It is a multiplier format. If you want to play in their paid contests in any of the sports, You could use the code SAL when you deposit, and if you put in $25, they will match you immediately with $25 right back. You can see right here the double box for them. Usually these contests don't fill, so you'll get a lot of overlay, meaning that you'll have a great chance at just by entering a lineup beating 10 to 15% of the field, or however many people don't enter the contest. This is their PGA long drive $1,000 to first. Check it out. Again, it's a free contest this week. I'll link up that free contest down below, as well as you being able to deposit if you indeed wish so with that code SAL to get a nice little deposit bonus. The number 5 play on the slate is Lonto Griffin, and Lonto is dirt cheap this week, and there's a lot of guys who are cheap because it's the majors and just picking up ownership here and there. Lonto for me is going to be my favorite out of all these 6K options. At $6,600, I only have him projecting out for 4%. Now, 4% ownership in the 6K range is actually relatively high. Like, rarely do you see guys go into double-digit ranges. Usually high ownership in the 4K or in the 6K range is like 5 to 7%. So 4% is like, you know, for overall, it's very low. For that range itself is a little bit higher than normal. Normally guys on there are like 2% owned. But similar to a Jason Kokrak, who's $500 more now, right? You get a cheaper discount on Lonto. What do you look for out of Lonto when he's getting his game going? Well, the short game with the putter, right? But then also off the tee game can really get going, and it's gotten going this year. Right now, he has not lost strokes off the tee dating back since January at the Amex, his 3rd event of the season. Since then, February all the way until now, he has not lost strokes off the tee to the field. And this past week, when we got to see him last time out, actually 2 weeks ago at the Wells Fargo, finishes 26 after back-to-back missed cuts, finally gets the approach play back under control where he was having some concerns with, makes the cut, finishes relatively highly, and gains 5 strokes overall, his best showing since March at the Arnold Palmer. So it looks like the form is now there. 300 to 1 odds to win this thing. I don't think he's completely out of it. I think those are a little bit high, actually. It might not be the worst thing to sprinkle even just $10 on. I don't have a bet there right now, but Lonto Griffin right now for me is my favorite $6,000 golfer as it stands right now, and he's not picking up ownership. He grades out well. He fits the course well. I have him for 42.9 fantasy points, which is significantly more than anybody else in that range. Now we'll get into the top 4 plays on the slate right now. The number 4 play on the slate is going to be Tony Finau, and this I think might be the best leverage play out of all the ones I give you. Now Lonto Griffin obviously at 4% owned is a leverage play, but what is his real upsides of winning? Not great, because you saw the 300 to 1 odds is where he opened at. Paul Casey, decent leverage play, not picking up a ton of ownership, 14-15%, closer to average though than totally under owned. Berger's going to be highly owned. Kokrak for his price range is decently owned at 10%, but the man that I like a lot right here is Tony Finau. Tony Finau at 40 to 1 odds to win this thing, so there's a significant chance, right? He shows up at these tougher events. He fits the build perfectly here if you're just talking about overall ball striking, off the tee play, how that all adds up, and then just having to putt and getting the short game going for you is his final concern and what we need to see out of him, similar to Will Zalatoris, of how he can succeed here. But Finau at $8,600, I have for just 11% projected ownership. This is going to be my single entry in 3 max as of right now, my favorite leverage play to say, okay, I have a highly owned, let's just say maybe Berger, or maybe one of the guys up top like a John Rahm or a Rory or a JT. If any of those guys pick up massive ownership, maybe you want to play Xander and he picks up some big ownership. But now I can get a Tony Finau at 10% ownership at that price point to significantly reduce my overall total lineup ownership. It's starting to look pretty nice here. Tony Finau for me projected out for 56 fantasy points. He is one of my 5 B pluses this week. Lonto is also one of those 5 B pluses out of the guys that we've talked about so far. Paul Casey was also another one of those. So that's 4 of the 5. We'll talk about another one shortly. And the reason why Tony Finau is going to be low owned, even though he sets up nicely here, is he's missed 3 out of his last 4 cuts, and he only ended up making the cut and finishing top 10 at the Masters, where he usually shows up at these types of venues and sets up nicely. Now, what is wrong with his game? It's kind of everything. It's just all over the place. It's nothing like catastrophic every single week. At the Wells Fargo, he misses the cut because his approach play wasn't dialing in the 1 round. Okay. He ends up finishing nice at the Masters. At the Valero, he ends up losing 4 strokes off the tee. It was like 2 bad holes, and he doesn't make the weekend. And then at the Players, it's just a tough field, and he just doesn't go low enough and barely misses the cut. So there's nothing like catastrophic with Tony Finau's game. It's a couple times just barely missing the cut, like at the Wells Fargo and at the Players. 1 bad round with the driver, which is something that normally doesn't happen. That was his first time losing stroke and his only time losing strokes overall since September when he missed the cut at the Valero. That is the last time he lost strokes off the tee. So you can feel a little bit more consistent with that. So now I think we're getting an under-owned and an undervalued Tony Finau because of his last couple of starts, even though they're not as bad as those missed cuts might entail, and people are just forgetting 2 events ago, the top 10 at the Masters. Give me Finau at $8,600 as a fantastic leverage option this week. We get inside the top 3 now. I will share my overall final bet was a 100 to 1 placement on Gary Woodland. 100 to 1 on Gary Woodland. We've seen now 2 out of the last 4 events that he's been in. He's getting top 10 finishes, but last time out, it was actually more sustainable. He did it with the approach play and the putter, not just the around the green play like we saw back a month or a month and a half ago. So I took the big number on it. I think it's valuable for a guy who's won a major championship before in this similar of a venue. So give me the 100 to 1 odds. I think that he should be closer to, at the very at the very highest, 80-1. The number 3 play in the slate is somebody similar to a Daniel Berger that I'm kind of hesitating to go towards, and that is Abraham Ancer. Abraham Ancer is my highest projectedly owned golfer right now at 24%. He's the reason why we're getting decent ownership on the Paul Caseys of the world. At $7,900, I understand why. Well, for one, he's not 8K, so there's a little bit of a sticker shock at the assumed price, right? When something's 99 cents instead of $1, it seems a lot cheaper at $7,900. So that's part of it. He's also coming off some really great performances. He's trending in the right direction. In his last 4 events, he's gotten better placements in each of them. A 26th at the Masters, then an 18th, a 5th at the Valspar, and a runner-up finish at the Wells Fargo, finishing 2nd overall, where every single thing was clicking. This guy continues to hit fairways. He rarely misses the cut. Only 2 missed cuts all the way back to last August. We're looking at almost a year. In the last year, he's only had 3 missed cuts, and he plays quite often. So, the Wells Fargo, he's now gained overall strokes, 12 or more total strokes in back-to-back events. Everything is dialed in here. The off-the-tee play is dialed in, gaining 3.5 strokes in back-to-back events, and 3 out of his last 4 gaining at least 3.5 strokes. Last time out, getting 4.5 strokes. So everything's clicking for him. He's 60-1 odds to win this. I'm sure it's a decent bet. He's a great greens and regulations player. He's a top 20 off-the-tee player in this field. So Ancer sets up nicely here for you if you want to go there and eat the ownership. I'm okay if you want to just eat the ownership on one of these guys or 2 of these guys, right? But I'd rather just get a little bit different. Like at $7,900, if I can just go to Paul Casey for almost, and maybe comes in half the ownership Paul Casey to Ancer, with Paul Casey in pretty nice form as well, I think I can just go there and fade half the ownership. It's as simple as that to make your lineups more unique. That being said, though, he's still a top 3 point per dollar projection play for me this week, so you don't have to just automatically cross him off because of the ownership. But if any sport, if you were to do that for DFS, golf would be that sport. We get inside the top 2 now, and I just want to let you know before we get into these last 2 players about my projections, my rankings, my ownership, the lineup optimizer, a bunch of stuff, Discord access for PGA, and a bunch of other sports. NBA playoffs are here, MMA, MLB every single day, MMA every week, NFL is coming soon. You can check it out all down below. It is my tools website on Patreon, linked down below. The whole goal is to reduce your research time, reduce all that, reduce your efforts, increase your chances of winning in a nice community that we have over on Discord and the Patreon. Check it out. Any questions, just reach out to me. Get the most bang for your buck down below. Industry low prices because I'm a company of one. That's literally what this book says right here. Shout out to Rick Raymond. I'm sure you've watched some of Rick's content. I'm a company of one, so I don't have to worry too much about overhead costs, so we can keep them prices real low for all you motherfuckers out there. You know what I'm saying? Alrighty, the number 2 play in the slate is somebody that I do have some decent interest in at this price point. I would rather pay a little bit more and get to a Tony Finau, or save a little bit and get to a Paul Casey for, honestly, not even that much of ownership discount, but just the way they set up here, mainly with those drivers and the ball striking. The number 2 play in the slate for me is going to be one, Terrell Hatton. I think Terrell Hatton sets up nicely here, especially if you want to look at some of these Euro stuff over the last couple of years and how these guys are trending at this course, one, but also just PGA championships in general. At $8,000 flat, look, you're getting like an 8 to 10% discount for $100 more off of Ancer alone. So Ancer's sucking up some of this ownership as well. Hatton opened 50 and 60-1 in a lot of spots for a guy who has actually showed up at big events, WGCs, majors in the past, and has piled on a couple of wins both overseas and on the tour over the last year to 2 years. Hatton for me projects out for 52.7 fantasy points. He is a B in my model right now. The problem is just the off the tee play. The off the tee play is not terrible, but the overall distance. Does Terrell Hatton have the overall distance to compete at this type of a course? And it's not 75 or 7,600 yards like it has been in the past at some PGA championships. It's almost 7,900 yards. Does he have the distance to be able to go out there and do something with that? Hatton right now in this field ranks 69th overall in distance and 53rd in accuracy, 3rd in proximity to the green, which is going to have to happen for him. Honestly, to win this, Hatton is going to have a really nice day overall with the putter, but we don't need him to win at $8,000. Give us a top 10, give us honestly a top 20 with high scoring on Draftkings finish, get some birdies in there, maybe an eagle, and that can be enough for Hatton. But I am a little bit weary of it, right? That's why I haven't taken the outright bet. I'm a little bit weary in how he sets up here, not being the greatest distance player, being fine off the tee when it comes to the overall accuracy and scoring, but not the greatest distance player. He's been fine over his last couple events, has a bunch of top 20 finishes or borderline top 20s. In 4 of his last 6 events, he's finished 23rd or better. So Hatton is in some quality form here. I'm not expecting him to win this event, but if we can get closer to a top 15 finish for a quality birdie or better player, ranks 30th in this field, I do think there's some upside there. Now let's get into the number 1 play on the slate, who is somebody that has been a number 1 on these boards a couple of times now. He is picking up ownership. I do think he sets up rather nicely here. It's very similar to the Paul Caseys of the world, the Tony Finau's of the world, and it's very similar to the Will Zalatoris of the world who have an outright bet on, right? Can you putt? That's all we need to see. And similar to Paul Casey, the putter for Corey Connors, he's the number 1 play this week at $7,600. I don't have him in the outright markets. He opened 70-1, bet down to 60-1 in a lot of spots. I have Corey Connors at 18% projected ownership this week. He is listed over his last 50 rounds as the number 1 ball striker in this field. And Corey Connors has been playing great. Now, over his last couple events, not so much. He lost 4.5 strokes with his putter in his last event, and he still finished 43rd overall because that's how dialed in his irons are. The irons have gained 6, 5, 3.2, 3.3, 5, 7.1 strokes. The irons are absolutely dynamite right now. The accuracy on those irons is dynamite. He is not the greatest of distance players, but similar to Hatton, you're not going to get a lot of distance off of Corey Connors. You are going to get one of the most accurate drivers in the field. He ranks second overall over his last 50 rounds in this field in driving accuracy, so you're not going to be getting just in the hazard type of play, right? So maybe not as much distance, maybe not threatening for eagle on the par 5s as much, but definitely threatening for birdie for a guy who outside of his last event at the Wells Fargo has gained strokes putting before the Wells Fargo collapse, right, where he still didn't miss the cut somehow. He just had a bad weekend with the putter, had gained strokes, 2 or more strokes in 4 straight events. So Connors is going to look very nice here, similar to the Hatton and some of the other things we've talked about. I don't think he wins. I don't have an outright bet on him, but especially as the price point continues to drop lower into the 7K range for some of these guys, just give me a top 20 finish. If he goes out there and does what he did at the Valspar, 21st overall, secures a couple of birdies, right? It's going to look pretty nice at $7,600. The ownership is something to be keeping an eye on, right? At 18%. If this starts to push up on our live stream tomorrow to like the 24, 25% range, maybe it's just an easy pivot to a Paul Casey for $100 more, to some of these lower end 7K options. He is tied for the 5th highest ownership, where there's a bunch of guys right now at 18% or more ownership right now. My model, I have 8 guys projected for 18% or more ownership, and one of those guys is Corey Connors at 18% exactly. So a little bit towards that upper range in ownership. But thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you tuning in to the betting portion of my 4 outright bets throughout this video, and then also the top 8 overall golfers. You can see them right now on the screen if you want to take a screenshot of that. Be sure to check the link in the description below to go see all the updates to ownership, the projections on all the rest of the players, and where my overall rankings are outside of just this top 8, the 9 through 20, and then all the way down into the top 150 plus players for this field. We do have a lineup optimizer to help you out on a bunch of other tools, so check those out, and also support the sponsor of the program, SuperDraft. There's a link down below to SuperDraft. If you deposit over there and you sign up and you play in any of their contests, you deposit $25 or more, they'll give you $25 right back. Use that code SAL, SAL, to let them know you came from me, and there'll be a free roll. It's free to enter. You can win up to $1,000 in prizes in that event. Linked down below as well. I'll enter that free roll for all of you. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all in advance. I'll see you on the live stream tomorrow and some NBA content throughout the week, so be sure to tune into all that. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Y'all rock. See y'all in the next one. Enjoy the golf.